Hello there, all you beautiful people. My name is Lebushki, and welcome back to my very first. Welcome back. Actually, scratch that. Welcome to my very first movie review. As you can see, it is none other than a review of the newest 28 movie, 28 years later, The Bone Temple. Now, I wasn't 100% sure how to approach this as an idea for making videos. It's a little bit complicated. It requires a lot of thought, actually, a lot more than I thought it would. It's not as easy as just sitting down and recording something. I kind of have to put something together visually. And originally, I was using uh, the trailers of the 28 Years Later movie as background visuals while I was yapping. But as soon as I uploaded that, I got the biggest, fattest, reddest circle with a line through it on YouTube because it was all copyright. And I didn't think of that. And YouTube was all like, no, 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 very bad, very naughty, cannot do that. And so I had to kind of take a week or so and think about how I wanted to approach this, how I was going to realize the vision of what I had for this kind of thing. And it wasn't necessarily easy, but I'm talking to you right now in front of a PowerPoint, which is just really funny to me that this is what I came to. And honestly, I think and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, prayers said that it works because I'm not seeing a problem with it so far. I've had a little bit of fun putting together the PowerPoint as well, and I'm hoping this can become a full-time thing. Now, a couple things I did want to clarify is that I will be doing this for 2026 movies and onward. I'm not necessarily going to go back in the past to 25 or 24 or even years before unless for some reason I really need to or want to. I don't really know why I would have to, but the only other videos that I'll be making on around movies and this kind of thing is the Oscars race and probably like a top 10 or top however many movies of the past year. But I don't intend on doing anything that was released last year. All of the movies here on and going forward are going to be 2026 releases. That is the plan. Hopefully I can stick to it. Hopefully all goes well. Again, fingers crossed. But without further ado, I intend on dividing the my thoughts specifically of the movie into a pros and cons list. Now that might be a little bit more pros or a little bit more cons depending on how I enjoyed the movie or how I liked it. And so it's again, I'm not really sure how this is going to work out. Hoping it works out well, and I'm happy with what I have at least. So we'll have to see how it goes forward for movies that I have more cons for. In this case, I have a lot of pros for the Bone Temple. I don't really have any cons. That's just because I really liked it. But I'll elaborate more on that here. So I also made them into like short little, well, kind of short little bullet points that are easier to follow so you kind of know where I am. But without further ado, let's start with the pros. In the first bullet point, I wrote excellent narrative split that symbolizes the destruction of the human minds in times of tragedy. Now, I wrote this because the story follows two different characters, neither of them really being Spike. Spike was the main character in the past 28 years later movie, along with him and his parents. This movie follows him, as in he's there, but he's not a main character. The main characters, rather, are Dr. Ian Kelson and Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal. Now, we met Dr. Kelson in the last movie. He's the former doctor who's really just kind of calmly and serenely going through life the best you can in this world, that is, and killing off infected and using their bones to build the Bone Temple as sort of a memento mori towards the dead who were unfairly killed too early. The second character is Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal, who we saw very, very briefly at the end of the past movie, but we didn't really know anything about him. He just kind of appeared. However, in this movie, we get to see and know a lot more about him than I think any of us wanted to. So Dr. Kelson is continuing on with his mementomorphication of the dead and building his temple so that he just has something to do. Honestly, he just seems kind of bored. And he also befriends the alpha infected Samson from the past movie And they kind of have a little buddy comedy thing going. Like kind of just sedates him, and Samson's just kind of there, all wigging out of his mind. And Dr. Kelson is just like chilling, all by himself. Well, not all by himself in this case, but with Samson. And it's kind of this weird dynamic because you switch from one character to the other, and the vibes are vastly different. So, like, Dr. Kelson, it's just kind of buddy comedy vibes. He's just, kind of experimenting, seeing what he can do with the infected, hanging out with them, daily stuff. He's kind of just turned into a mortician, honestly. Meanwhile, Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal acts as a charismatic cult leader, essentially. He believes he's the son of Satan, the devil, if you will, and his only job is really to just send more souls to his pops. Why? You don't really know. He's literally just kind of crazy. And that kind of is what I meant by the destruction of the human mind. While Dr. Kelson remains, relatively intact and thoughtful, Jimmy Crystal has just kind of gone off the rails. He's killing fellow survivors as well as the infected because he believes it's right. I don't even know if he believes it's right. I just think he likes doing it because he's psychotic. And so it's very odd to go from one more calm vibe to he and his gang of Jimmies slaughtering innocent survivors. Like I said, very odd. And it's kind of this faith versus fear tactic that he employs where his Jimmies aren't necessarily the Jimmies are his gang, by the way, in case I didn't mention that. His Jimmies aren't necessarily on board with everything, but they're kind of bored but scared to oppose him, so they just kind of do what he wants. So it's an interesting dynamic. And additionally, you have that science versus religion dynamic going between the two main characters. Except, in this case, religion has kind of gone completely off the rails. So, like I said, very interesting. The second bullet point, a stronger story focus that is DLC like. What I mean by that is, like I mentioned in the previous point, Spike is not a main character anymore. He is a secondary character. And they have a very strong focus on these two previously secondary characters. Although, I mean, I guess Jimmy Crystal would even be a tertiary character. So it feels kind of DLC like, almost like an add on to explore how these characters got where they are. And honestly, it works really well. Spike isn't necessarily a bad, compelling protagonist, but he kind of had his whole character arc in the previous movie that he grew up, he needed to man up, so to speak. And he kind of did, and now he's a part of this cult. But the stronger story focus, I found really, really awesome. Just because instead of focusing on more of the horror aspects, it kind of focused more on, well, vibes and actually make a compelling story about these two characters that it's kind of like, why should I even care about them? They're just random people. But by the end of this, I did, and I enjoyed both their characters very well. And it's very interesting to see that kind of thing done because initially I was kind of scared about how this movie would go just because I didn't really see where they were going to continue on since 28 years later was very roundabout in how its story ended. But I think most of the pros I have from this and most of the praise I have is because of the powerhouse performances from Ray Fiennes and Jack O'Connell. And we're on to the third bullet point now. Many of you probably know Ray Fiennes as either Lord Voldemort from the Harry Potter series or Oscar Schindler from Steven Spielberg's Schindler's List. Those are at least his most popular roles. Although he was recently nominated uh, for the movie Conclave. He didn't win, but he was nominated, which is still important. And then, of course, Jack O'Connell, which is or was Remick from last year's Sinners movie. So both of them are, or at least have shown that they have skill in the acting department, and they aren't they aren't newbies. And it was so obvious from this movie. Like I said, Dr. Ian Kelson kind of commands the screen with his calmness and serenity And then immediately you switch to Jimmy Crystal, who commands the screen with his insane violence and his personable character. It's really, really interesting to see the two of them together. And honestly, those were the strongest points of the movie. If I ended up not liking anything else, I would have still, I believe, loved, loved their characters. Other than that, onto the fourth bullet point, this movie was just excellent in terms of cinematography and score that carried over effortlessly from the previous 28 entry. The first 28 Days Later movie feels very dated insofar as it feels so much like a 2000s movie. Its camera quality isn't exactly good. It's kind of snappy. It's kind of all over the place. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. The movie is still good, but it's not something that I love. I like clearer, more defined, more beautiful cinematography. And this is what it had. This is what this movie had, that is. Just shots of gorgeous nature, the beauty of nature that is uncontained now that half of humanity has been wiped out. But it contrasts the nature with the horror of the infected. And I just love that so much. As well as the score. The score was very good. It helped drum up the intense moments and helped make the more exciting moments better. What do I mean by that? I mean the ending specifically. Now, I'm not going to spoil it, but it has possibly one of the best endings to a movie I've seen in a while. I was laughing my head off. Not in a bad way. Not in a bad way at all. You can laugh at something and enjoy it, and man, did I enjoy it. It was so absurdly funny in the best way possible. And I think if anything, that's what tied this movie up into a nice little bow. Is from scene 1 to scene 1000 or whatever, however many scenes are in this movie to the ending. I was just like, "Oh, this is great. Excellent choices, excellent writing, beautifully shot overall." I'm just very impressed. And I have to admit, I was initially very scared of how this movie would turn out because it was directed by Nia DaCosta. And now I have nothing against her as a director, except she directed The Marvels, which was probably one of the worst Marvel movies to come out, if not the worst, within the last 5 years. And so, as soon as I heard she was attached to this, I was like, "Oh man, please don't make this suck." And I got my wish, and I'm very satisfied with this final product. It was excellent. It's good to know that, a script actually matters and that she has some good skill if the script is good because we know Marvel has been kind of flopping as of late. That's a whole separate thing. Don't let me get into that. And so without further ado, I gave this movie an A plus, 100 out of 100 for a lot of different reasons that I just discussed. I just thought it was excellently well done, and I thought it was probably just one of the best ways to start off the year. In all honesty, horror is kind of a hit or miss genre for me. I'm not necessarily someone who loves it, but I don't hate it either. And I was told to get into this series just because zombies and stuff, and that's always cool. And who doesn't like zombies? Especially this, considering they're not really even zombies; they're just infected. But it was still really interesting. I really like this movie. I do recommend people see it. Even if you don't like the other movies, I feel like I think this one is actually the highest rated in the series, which makes sense. And I'm glad that it is because it definitely deserves that kind of recognition. But without further ado, thank you everyone so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this first of hopefully many reviews. But we will see in time how that works out. And of course, go see a movie. Doesn't have to be this movie. Go see a movie in theaters. Movies are meant to be seen in theaters. Theater releases are very important, and they are a great way to experience community and excitement and just the excellence of filmmaking. But support your local chain, go see a movie, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Until then, take it easy. Peace.